Hello, and thank you for joining me here today, Sonoma Avenue Church of Christ, for our Sunday starter. Now, some of you may know me really well, some of you may not know me very well at all. I am not someone who has ever really been described as a ray of sunshine. Now, this is not to say that I am an outright card-carrying pessimist. I actually think that the opposite is true. But I am someone who is a little bit more reserved and quiet. I don't have a wide range of facial expressions. A lot of times I prefer to just sit back in a group and listen and see what's going on. Now, this has been really unnerving to some. I remember hosting a small group in college, and after one of these groups, a freshman who had attended for the first time and hadn't spent much time around me remarked to one of my friends that she didn't know I laughed or smiled, like she was genuinely surprised. Now, I love to laugh, and I tolerate smiling, but I do keep a reserved look, and there's lots of reasons for that. I carry around with me every day a lot of burdens. I struggle with depression, and I've struggled with depression for years. I've had a lot of ups and downs with that, and right now, depression-wise, I feel really pretty good about everything. But in my life, I've been to places where I just didn't know if I wanted to live anymore or if living was worthwhile. So that's an ongoing thing that I deal with. Number two, I worry a lot about a lot of different things. Being a dad, I worry about my kids. I worry about my wife. I worry about my parents that are going through an especially hard time right now. I worry about the church. I worry about money. I worry about all sorts of different things. And for years and years now, I haven't even really slept very well at night because I always wake up thinking about something. It's hard to get my mind to shut off. And I have these weird recurring dreams sometimes. When I was in college, I would have a dream that I had forgotten about a test or a paper or some sort of presentation, and I wake up the day of and I'm not ready, and I rush to class and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Now, I still had that dream years after I stopped going to college. But now that I'm a preacher, that dream has transitioned into a dream where now it's Sunday morning and I'm sitting in church and I don't have my notes and I can't find them anywhere. And so I run to my office or I run somewhere to where there's a printer and the printer won't work and people are waiting for me to get up and talk. This is sort of a dream manifestation of my anxieties, the things that I worry about not being prepared or not being ready, and so it's affected how I sleep at night. And for years and years, like I said, I haven't slept very well. I deal with a lot of health problems. I have fibromyalgia and rheumatoid arthritis and problems with my digestive system, and so I often really don't feel good. And it seems like no matter how much I sleep at night or how well I sleep or how much I'm up, it doesn't matter. I am always tired. And I don't know about you, but given everything that has been going on in our world over these last 3 months, I find that I am so weary and I am so tired. Some days it's hard for me to want to get up and do anything. Other days it feels like the things that I'm doing just aren't making that much of a difference. And the question that I have, because I know that a lot of you are weary and tired as well, is what do we do with these feelings? These feelings of weariness, these feelings of exhaustion, and waking up to another day where there aren't a whole lot of great answers that are still available to us, where our problems or our worries or our fears still exist, where they're still very healthy and strong. And I wonder what to do with those things. Now, as someone who has dealt with depression, the answer I am not going to give you today is just to stop worrying and trust God. Now, I understand why people would say that, but oftentimes for those of us who have had issues with depression and anxiety, when someone tells us, well, don't worry, just trust God, it makes us feel like we're failing in some way, and so we try harder not to worry. But the harder we try not to worry, the more we worry about how much we're worrying. And it feels like we're failing in our faith. So I want you to know this morning that this idea of trusting God may be part of the answer, but just stop worrying and don't be sad. Those answers, they don't hold a lot of truth for me. Instead, I'm reminded that in the scripture, over and over again, people spoke of the difficult things that were going on in their lives to God. There's a whole book about it, as a matter of fact. And this is just one section from Lamentations chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of the Lord's wrath. He has driven me away and made me walk in darkness rather than light. Indeed, he has turned his hand against me again and again all day long. He has made my skin and my flesh grow old and has broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and hardship. He has made me dwell in darkness like those long dead. He has walled me in so I cannot escape. He has weighed me down with chains. Even when I call out or cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. He has barred my way with blocks of stone. He has made my paths crooked. This is a deeply emotional passage written by someone who not only is going through a struggle or a hard time, but feels that God is completely absent from him and from all the things that are going on. In fact, he's questioning or even accusing God of being the source of some of this darkness. And he is crying out to God, not even necessarily asking God to do something, but just putting the state of his life, of his emotions, of his feelings out there for God to see. What is our expectation of God in the middle of our weariness? Now, if we had our way, we would love for God to take all of our problems away, to fix what is wrong. We would love for him to swoop in and magically just sort of make everything better. And don't get me wrong, God has done miraculous things in my life and in the lives of those that I know and love, but my experience hasn't matched up with that magical expectation that we sometimes have. God has not fixed my problems. God has not made my anxieties or my worries go away. And the things that I have lived with for years are things that I am still living with. But here's the thing, when I looked to the scriptures to try to find some answers and to try to overcome this weariness and to rise on wings like eagles, I discovered that God actually never promised us that he will fix everything. You want to hear that again? God has never promised us that he will fix everything that is wrong in our lives. He has never promised to remove the sources of anxiety that we face. He has never promised that he will take away everything that troubles us. I think that expectation just came from us, because that's what we want, isn't it? But if that's not what God promised, then what did he promise? Well, there are a lot of promises, but I just want to touch on 3. Number 1, he promised that he will be present with us in the times of anxiety and suffering and trouble. Now, we don't get to determine what that presence of God is going to be like in the middle of those things. Maybe he's not the fixer that we want him to be. But what I've started praying for in situations where I don't know what to ask and I don't know how to control what's going on is I've started asking God to just be whatever it is that he needs to be in this moment. And I allow God to determine what that is. because I know that God promises that he will be present with us and never leave us. Number two, God promises that he will restore, make new. You know, the thing about restoration is that something has to be broken down a little bit or need restoration in order to go through a period of restoration. You don't take something that is in perfect shape and make it in more perfect shape. And that's not what God promises us anyway. What God promises us is that he takes what is broken and he restores it. And he doesn't make it so that the scars never exist. Instead, he makes those places heal and the scars remain to remind us of where we've been. Because thirdly, God promises that he will never let go of us. And I know that there are times where it feels like we couldn't find God if he walked up to us and said hello. But God will never let go of us. There is nothing that can separate us from the love of God in Jesus Christ. Now, I know that all three of those things are true, but the issue is that when I am in the middle of anxiety or depression or worry, or when I am just tired and I want all these things to be over, or I want relief, those ideas don't always bring comfort to me. But as I reflect on that, I ask myself, what is better? Is it better that God simply took everything away from me so I didn't have to experience or change or grow? Or is it better that I know that God will always be present no matter what is happening? That God will and can restore whatever is going on and whatever is broken. And that he will never, ever let go of me. What is the better promise? Back to Lamentation chapter 3. The writer continues in verses 19 through 31. And he says, I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. It is good for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. Let him sit alone in silence, for the Lord has laid it on him. Let him bury his face in the dust. There may yet be hope. Let him offer his cheek to one who would strike him, and let him be filled with disgrace. For no one is cast off by the Lord forever. Though he brings grief, he will show compassion. So great is his unfailing love, for he does not willingly bring affliction or grief to anyone. As hard as this person's life was, and as difficult as the situation may have been, and as far away from God as they may have felt, they were able to remember something very important about God. That God is not the one doing this to us. But sometimes we need to go through these moments of pain or change or fear or worry or anxiety or depression. We have to confront that this world doesn't have the answers for us. And when the shine is taken off of this place, and we live in the middle of a world that does not last, we are reminded that there is hope. For God does not leave us in this place forever. That God will restore us once more. And that God will take us beyond all of this. No matter how hard things may seem, no matter how tired I am, I still wake up to the next day. And every day, I am surrounded by the grace and blessing of God. And this doesn't eliminate my weariness. It doesn't keep me from being depressed. It doesn't even keep me from my anxiety, but it gives me that one thing that I need the most. It gives me hope. Because at the end of each day, I know that my God is bigger than all of the worry and the stress that I carry with me. And I am reminded of these words from Jesus. Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 29. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Maybe right now you are tired and weary. May you know that God has not done this to you, but that God is able to do things in you and through you. And that there is hope in knowing that God is the overcomer of all of these things that surround us. And that you can go to God weary and tired and burdened. And in Him, you will find rest. Would you like to know more? Well, join us on Sunday. I hope to see you then.